Welcome to our deep dive. We're going to explore infinitary logic, but we're going to be tailoring this one specifically for, well, our philosopher in residence.
Right.
It's really an area of logic that I think stretches the boundaries of what we normally think about
Yeah.
when we think about logic, right? It's
Yeah.
it's fascinating because in traditional logic, you're usually dealing with finite expressions,
Right.
right? You can write them down,
Right.
on a piece of paper or whatever. But what happens when we allow those expressions to become um, infinite?
Well, that's what infinitary logic is all about.
Exactly. That's what infinitary logic is about, and it opens up a whole world of questions and
Yeah.
possibilities.
What's so fascinating about infinitary logic is that it allows us to express ideas that just can't be captured by traditional finite logic. I
Hmm.
mean, we're talking about concepts that are inherently infinite in nature, like the full richness of arithmetic, or even the concept of finitude itself.
Yeah. Okay. So infinite sentences, infinite ideas. That already sounds like it's giving me a little bit of a headache, to be honest.
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in the infinite, can you give me a sense of how these infinitary languages are even built? Like, what are the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, so we start with the familiar building blocks of first-order logic, your basic logical connectives, quantifiers, variables. But then we add a twist. We
Okay.
allow for infinitely long conjunctions, disjunctions, and strings of quantifiers. So imagine a sentence that says, for all x, for all y, for all z, that just keeps going forever.
Oh my God. Okay, so hold on. That already makes my head spin. It's like we're taking all the grammar rules of logic and just tossing them out the window. Right?
Yeah.
Like how do we even write these infinite sentences? It's not like we can fit them on a blackboard.
Yeah. Right. We need new notation to handle this.
Yeah.
So we use symbols like L to denote these languages, where L and L are infinite cardinal numbers. And these symbols tell us how long our expressions can be.
Okay.
So, for example, O1, that lets us have countably infinite conjunctions, but we're still just using finite strings of quantifiers.
Oh, okay. So it's like these symbols. These symbols are almost like blueprints
Yeah.
for infinite languages, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around what we can actually do with them. Like why should I as a philosopher or anyone listening to this care about these infinitary languages? What's the big deal?
The real power of infinitary languages lies in their expressive power.
Okay.
So let's take the standard model of arithmetic, for example. That's just the natural numbers, right, with all their familiar properties.
Yeah.
Turns out you can't fully describe that system using just first-order logic. You need the muscle of an infinitary language like El Bueno to capture all the infinitely many truths about addition, multiplication, and so on.
So you're saying that we can capture the infinite essence
Yeah.
of mathematical structures.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, especially for someone interested in the philosophy of mathematics.
Yeah.
Um, are there other examples though where infinitary logic really shines a light on
Yeah.
on philosophical issues, things that might be relevant to me?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Think about the concept of finitude.
Okay.
Seems so basic,
All right.
right? But how do we actually define what it means for something to be finite? Infinitary languages actually give us the tools to do that. We can write a sentence that says there exists a finite number of objects such that, and then specify the properties we care about.
Wait, so you're saying that we can define with these infinitary languages, we can define what it means
Yeah,
to be finite.
yeah,
Like doesn't that create a kind of a paradox, right?
yeah.
Because we're using an infinite tool to define finitude.
Mhm.
I feel like that has huge implications for how we think about the relationship between the finite and the infinite.
It does. That's a great observation, and it hints at the philosophical depth of infinitary logic. We're not just playing with symbols here. We're grappling with fundamental concepts that have puzzled philosophers for centuries.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. We're moving beyond the technicalities, right?
Exacted.
And into deep philosophical water. Are there other philosophical gems we can unearth with these infinitary tools?
Here's a big one. Defining truth for countable languages.
Okay.
This is a huge issue in the philosophy of language. In first-order logic, we can't define truth for the language within the language itself. So
Right.
it's like a limitation built into the system.
Right.
But with an infinitary language, like L1, we can actually create a truth predicate for any countable first-order language.
So you're saying that we can do something with infinitary logic that was previously thought to be impossible.
Yeah.
Like we can
Yeah.
define truth in this kind of self-contained way.
Yes.
I mean, that seems like it could shake up our whole like understanding of truth and how we represent it.
You're getting it. Infinitary logic opens up possibilities that were previously closed to us, and it forces us to rethink some of our most basic philosophical assumptions.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal of these infinitary languages. They allow us to express more, define more, and maybe even understand more about the nature of truth itself.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like we're venturing into like pretty complex territory, right?
Yeah.
Is there a point where like all this expressive power becomes too much? Do we lose something along the way?
That's a key question. While infinitary languages offer incredible power, they do come at a cost. They often lack some of the like nice, neat properties of first order logic that make it so easy to work with.
Okay.
For example, compactness.
Right. One of the cornerstones of first order logic that generally fails for infinitary languages.
Hold on, I'm getting a bit lost here.
Yeah,
You said that L1 has a completeness theorem,
it does. Yeah.
but it doesn't have compactness. Can you walk me through how that even works? What does it mean for a system to be complete but not compact?
Yeah, so let's start with compactness. It essentially means that if every finite part of a set of sentences is consistent,
Okay.
meaning they could all be true at the same time, then the entire set of sentences is consistent. It's a powerful tool for reasoning about logical systems.
Right.
But with infinitary languages, this principle breaks down. You can have sets of sentences that are consistent in every finite part, but when you consider the whole infinite set,
Yeah.
they become contradictory.
Okay, so if we lose compactness, does that mean like all bets are off when we're working with infinitary languages? Do we lose the ability to reason about consistency in a systematic way? Not necessarily. There are still ways to make sense of consistency and find pockets of local compactness, but it requires more sophisticated tools and techniques.
So while L1 retains some like orderliness, it still breaks some of the rules that we rely on
Yeah.
in standard logic.
Right.
Right? For instance, it lacks you said compactness, right? Which means we can't simply check finite parts to guarantee the consistency of the whole.
Right.
What other rules kind of fall by the wayside in this realm?
Another important property that L1 lacks is something called prenex normal form.
Okay.
In first order logic, we can rearrange any formula so that all the quantifiers come at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
It's a way of simplifying formulas and making them easier to analyze. But L1 doesn't allow for this kind of neat rearrangement. There are sentences that are inherently more complex and can't be put into this standard form.
Okay. So no easy restructuring of formulas in L1. Got it. What other key differences should I be aware of, as a philosopher kind of venturing into this territory?
Well, there's also the upward Lowenheim-Skolem theorem, which holds in first-order logic, but not in L1.
Okay.
This theorem says that if a set of sentences has an infinite model,
Okay.
then it has models of arbitrarily large infinite size.
Okay.
But in L1, you can have sentences that have a model of a certain infinite size, but no models of any larger size.
So even though L10 has this nice completeness theorem, it's still a very different beast
Yeah.
than first order logic.
Mhm.
It plays by different rules.
Right.
It has different strengths and limitations. It's like we're entering a new logical universe.
Yeah.
With its own unique laws.
That's a great analogy, and it's important to keep those differences in mind as we explore this new landscape.
You mentioned earlier that L1 has as this completeness theorem.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean in this context, and why is it significant, especially for someone coming from a philosophical background?
Yeah. So the completeness theorem, even in this modified form, is a powerful result. It tells us that there's a harmony
Okay.
between the syntax of the language, the rules for forming valid sentences, right?
Yeah.
And the semantics,
Okay.
the models that interpret those sentences. So every sentence that is true in every model can be proven from our axioms, and conversely, every sentence that can be proven is true in every model.
Okay, so it's like a guarantee
Yeah.
that our formal system is capturing like all the truths of the language, right?
Yeah.
But you also mentioned Scott's isomorphism theorem,
Yeah.
which seems to have a different flavor. Can you explain that one and tell me why it might be of interest to a philosopher?
So Scott's isomorphism theorem is quite remarkable. It says that for any countable structure, think of a set with countably many elements and relations on those elements, you can find an L1 sentence
Okay.
that completely characterizes that structure up to isomorphism.
So you're saying that for certain structures we can create like a perfect logical blueprint
Yeah.
that captures their essence.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Makes me wonder if there are any limits to what we can represent logically,
Oh.
especially when it comes to philosophical concepts.
Yeah.
Does this mean that everything is in principle capturable by logic, or are there aspects of reality that will always elude kind of formalization?
That's a profound question, and one that philosophers have been grappling with, for centuries, right?
Mhm.
Scott's isomorphism theorem gives us a powerful tool for representation, but it also raises deep questions about the relationship um, between models and logic and reality.
This is really getting me thinking. It seems like with L1 we're walking this tightrope, right?
Yeah.
Between power and limitations.
Yeah.
On the one hand, we can express more, define more, and even capture the essence of certain structures.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we lose some of the nice properties of first order logic, like compactness.
Right.
And who knows what other strange phenomena we might encounter as we delve deeper into this territory, right?
You've hit the nail on the head. And speaking of strange phenomena, there's a fascinating connection between the failure of compactness
Okay.
in infinitary languages and a particularly mind-boggling area of set theory.
Yeah.
Large cardinals.
Okay, these large cardinals sound like they're pushing the boundaries of what we even consider like numbers.
Yeah. Right.
But you're saying they're connected to this compactness problem.
Yes.
In logic, that's wild. It's like these huge abstract entities are somehow influencing the behavior of our logical systems.
Right. You're right. They are pushing those boundaries. Large cardinals are incredibly large, infinite numbers, whose existence can't even be proven from the standard axioms of set theory. They're like the giants of the mathematical universe, and their properties have ripple effects throughout different areas of math, including logic.
So we're not just dealing with abstract logical systems here. We're touching upon the very foundations of mathematics, right?
Let's go.
The nature of infinity itself.
Exactly.
This is definitely a deep dive in every sense of the word.
Exactly. And this is just the beginning. We've only scratched the surface of what infinitary logic has to offer. There are still mysteries to unravel, paradoxes to confront, and profound implications to ponder.
Okay, so we've got these large cardinals kind of lurking in the background, possibly influencing the behavior of our logical systems. But I have to admit, my grasp of set theory is a bit shaky. Can you give me a little more like background on what these large cardinals are and how they connect to the compactness problem?
Sure. So large cardinals are a fascinating topic.
Good.
Even if they can be a bit intimidating at first,
Yeah.
they're essentially infinite numbers that are so large. Their very existence goes beyond what we can prove from the usual axioms of set theory.
So we need to go beyond the standard rules of the game.
Yeah.
Beyond the usual axioms to even like talk about these cardinals.
Uh-huh.
It's like we're entering a new realm of mathematics altogether.
Exactly.
So what are some examples of these large cardinals, and what makes them so special?
Some famous examples include inaccessible cardinals, which can't be reached by taking power sets or unions of smaller cardinals.
Okay.
It's like they're unreachable from below.
Okay.
And then you have measurable cardinals, which have a certain property related to the idea of measuring the size of sets, even infinite ones.
Okay. So we've got inaccessible cardinals that are unreachable. We've got measurable cardinals that deal with measuring, like the unmeasurable.
Right.
It's all very abstract. But how do these connect to the compactness problem in infinitary logic. It still feels like we're jumping between like completely different universes here.
The connection is subtle, but it's profound.
Okay.
So it turns out that the failure of compactness in certain infinitary languages is often a symptom of the presence of these large cardinals lurking in the background.
Okay.
For example, if a certain language L has a weakened version of compactness, then the cardinal pa must be at least inaccessible.
So the compactness problem, which seemed like a purely logical issue, right?
Yeah.
Is actually giving us hints about the existence of these massive set theoretic entities. It's like logic and set theory are intertwined at a very deep level, like
Yeah.
influencing each other in ways we're only beginning to
Wait,
understand.
got it. The properties of these large cardinals can have a ripple effect throughout mathematics, impacting even the seemingly simple question of whether a set of sentences can be satisfied in a model. It's a reminder that mathematics is a deeply interconnected web of ideas.
This is all incredibly mind blowing, but I'm trying to keep my philosophical hat on here.
Yeah.
What does this connection between infinitary logic and large cardinals tell us about the limits of formal systems?
Yeah.
Or the nature of mathematical truth?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another crucial concept in infinitary logic:
Yep.
incompleteness. So unlike first order logic, which has a beautiful completeness theorem, right?
Right.
Many infinitary languages, including L1, are inherently incomplete.
Wait, so even with all this expressive power, with infinite sentences and large cardinals in the mix, we still run into the problem of incompleteness.
Yes.
That's both fascinating and a bit disheartening.
Yeah.
It seems like no matter how far we push the boundaries of logic, we can never escape this fundamental limitation.
You're right. Incompleteness seems to be a recurring theme in logic. Infinitary logic is no exception. But it's not necessarily disheartening. It's more like a challenge, right? A
Yeah.
reminder that there will always be truths that elude capture by any formal system we can devise.
This sounds a lot like Gödel's incompleteness theorems.
Yeah.
Which basically show that any sufficiently powerful formal system
Right.
will always contain true statements that can't be proven within the system. Is the incompleteness in infinitary logic just a rehash of Gödel's results,
Right.
or is it something different?
It's related to Gödel's ideas, but not quite the same. So Gödel's theorems apply to systems that can represent arithmetic, but infinitary languages operate at a higher level of abstraction, dealing with concepts that go beyond basic arithmetic.
Okay, so we're not just dealing with a rehash of Gödel, right?
Yeah.
This is a new kind of incompleteness,
Yeah.
specific to the world of infinitary logic.
Right.
But I'm curious, how do we even prove that a language is incomplete? It seems like a difficult task to show that
Yeah.
that there will always be like truths that slip through the cracks of any formal system.
The key lies in the concept of definability.
Okay.
So in logic, we often talk about defining sets or properties using formulas within a language.
Right.
So for example, in arithmetic, you can define the set of even numbers.
Using a first order formula. But things get trickier when we try to define the set of valid sentences
Okay.
of an infinitary language.
So the question is, can we use a formula like within a language
Yeah.
to pinpoint all the true statements of that language?
Yeah.
It's like asking the language to like see its own reflection in a mirror, right? It sounds very self-referential.
Yes.
Which is always a recipe for strange and paradoxical results.
You're exactly right. And that's where things start to break down for infinite quantifier languages. To even talk about definability in this context, we need to specify a coding structure,
Okay.
a set theoretic framework where we can treat formulas as objects themselves.
So we're taking formulas which are usually used to talk about things,
Right.
and turning them into objects that we can talk about using other formulas.
Yeah.
It's like a double layer of abstraction, right?
A kind of like meta logic.
Precisely. So for first order logic, we often use hereditarily finite sets as our coding structure.
Oh.
These are sets built up from the empty set in a finite number of steps. But
Sure.
but for L11, the natural coding structure becomes the collection of hereditarily countable sets,
Okay.
which allows for more complexity.
Okay, so we've got these formulas encoded as sets,
Yeah.
but I still don't see how this leads to incompleteness, right? Like how do we show that there are truths that can't be captured by the language?
This is where Scott's undefinability theorem comes in.
Right.
This theorem states that the set of valid sentences of L11, when encoded as sets in our coding structure, is not definable within that structure, even
Yeah.
using the full power of L1 itself.
Whoa, that's a mouthful. So we can't even use Elnon to point to its own set of valid sentences within its own coding structure. It's like the language is fundamentally incapable of like grasping its own truths in a complete way.
That's a great way to put it. This undefinability result has profound consequences.
Yeah.
It implies that L11 is inherently incomplete.
Yeah.
There will always be true sentences in this language that cannot be derived from any set of axioms, no matter how clever we are in constructing our formal system.
This is mind-blowing. It's like we're hitting a fundamental wall.
Yeah.
A limit to what can be known or expressed
Right.
within a formal system. Even when we allow, infinite expressions and venture into the realm of large cardinals. What does this tell us about the nature of truth itself? Is there a realm of truth that transcends the grasp of any logical system?
Those are great questions, and ones that philosophers continue to debate. The incompleteness of L101 certainly challenges our assumptions about the power of formal systems and the nature of mathematical truth.
Okay, so we've established that general compactness fails in infinitary languages,
Right.
and even L with its completeness theorem is ultimately incomplete.
Yeah.
Does this mean all hope is lost for finding any kind of completeness or compactness in this realm? Are there any like glimmers of light in this seemingly like bleak landscape?
There's always hope. While we might not have general compactness,
Right.
there are special situations where a kind of local compactness emerges.
Okay.
This is where Barwise's work on admissible sets and the Barwise compactness theorem comes in.
Admissible sets and barwise compactness.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're going even deeper down the rabbit hole of infinitary logic.
Yeah.
Can you guide me through these concepts and explain why they're important for a philosopher grappling with these issues?
Of course. So admissible sets are essentially well-behaved fragments of the set theoretic universe.
Okay.
So they're sets that are rich enough to support basic recursion theory and proof theory, but not so large that they become unwieldy.
So we're trying to find a middle ground, a
Exactly.
sweet spot
Exactly.
between the overly simple and the overly complex.
Exactly. Admissible sets provide a framework for a more nuanced approach to compactness.
Okay.
Instead of asking whether every set of sentences has a model, if every finite subset does, we focus on sets of sentences that are well behaved according to the structure of the admissible set.
It's like we're narrowing our focus,
Yeah.
restricting our attention to a specific like corner of the infinitary universe where things are a bit more manageable.
Precisely. And this leads us to the Barwise compactness theorem. It essentially says that if you have an admissible set and a set of sentences that are definable in a suitable way within that set,
Okay.
then a version of compactness holds. If every subset of your set of sentences that belongs to the admissible set has a model,
Okay.
then the whole set has a model.
So we're not talking about compactness in its full like generality,
Right.
but rather more restricted version.
Yeah.
That applies to specific like sublanguages and
Yeah.
and sets of sentences.
Right.
It's like a rescue mission
Yeah.
for compactness in
Yeah.
in certain well-defined like contexts.
That's a great way to put it. Barweis's work shows that even in the face of general incompleteness and the failure of general compactness,
Yeah.
there are still pockets of order and structure to be found in the infinitary realm.
Okay, so there's hope for compactness after all.
Yes.
But I'm curious, how does this Barwise compactness theorem actually like play out in practice? What are some concrete examples where it's used?
One fascinating application is in model theory.
Okay.
Specifically in the study of models of ZFC set theory. Remember, ZFC is the gold standard for axiomatizing set theory.
Right.
Using Barwise compactness, we can prove that every countable model of ZFC has a proper end extension, which is a larger model that extends the original one in a very specific way.
Okay, all right. Break that down for me. What does it mean for one model of set theory to like properly extend another, and why is this result significant?
Imagine you have a model of ZFC,
Okay.
which is essentially a set theoretic universe that satisfies all the axioms of ZFC.
Okay.
A proper end extension is a larger model that includes all the sets from the original model, but also adds new sets while preserving the ordering of the sets. It's like adding new floors to a building without messing up the existing structure.
So we're not just like randomly adding new sets,
Right.
right? We're extending the model in a way that respects the existing like relationships between sets.
Right.
But how does Barwise compactness like help us prove that such extensions always exist for countable models?
The trick is to create a set of sentences that describe the properties we want in our end extension, like containing all the sets from the original model and respecting the set membership relation.
Yeah.
Then we use Barwise compactness to show that this set of sentences must have a model which corresponds to the desired end extension.
So we're using infinitary logic as a blueprint for constructing new set theoretic universes.
Yes.
And Bartwise compactness like guarantees that our blueprint can actually be like realized.
Yeah.
It's like a powerful tool for exploring the vast landscape of possible like set theoretic structures.
Exactly. Barwise compactness gives us a way to build new models from existing ones, to push the boundaries of our understanding of sets and their properties.
This whole journey through infinitary logic has been a real eye-opener.
It has.
We've encountered incompleteness, large cardinals, admissible sets, and a whole new way of thinking about the relationship between logic and set theory and the nature of truth. It's a lot to process, but I feel like I've gained a much deeper appreciation for the power and the limits of formal systems.
It's a journey that never really ends. Infinitary logic is full of surprises, challenges, and profound insights, and it continues to inspire new questions and new avenues of exploration in both mathematics and philosophy.
Wow, it really is amazing how much ground we've covered in this deep dive. We started with this simple idea of allowing infinite expressions in logic, and it's led us to explore everything from like the foundations of mathematics to the very nature of truth. I have to say, as a philosopher, this has been an incredibly stimulating conversation. But before we wrap things up, I'd love to like distill some key takeaways.
Yeah.
Right, for our listeners. What are the main insights that you think they should carry with them from this exploration of infinitary logic?
Well, I think one of the most important takeaways is the realization that formal systems, even powerful ones like infinitary logic, have limits.
Yeah.
The incompleteness results we discussed show that there will always be truths that elude capture by any system of axioms and rules, and this has profound implications for how we think about knowledge, truth, and the nature of mathematical reasoning.
It's a humbling reminder that even in the realm of logic, where everything seems like so precise and rigorous,
Right.
there are mysteries that might forever remain like beyond our reach.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if there's like a kind of truth
Right.
that transcends formalization altogether,
Absolutely, and it's not just about incompleteness. Infinitary logic also provides us with new ways to think about fundamental philosophical concepts like finitude and infinity.
Yeah.
The ability to define finitude within an infinitary language forces us to re-examine the relationship between these two seemingly opposite notions.
Yeah, it's like we're gaining a new language for talking about infinity, right? The
Yeah.
language that allows us to grapple with its complexities in ways that we couldn't before. And speaking of infinity, we can't forget the surprising connection,
Yeah.
right, between infinitary logic and large cardinals.
Right. The interplay between logic and set theory is truly fascinating. It highlights how seemingly abstract concepts like large cardinals can have a tangible impact on the behavior of logical systems.
It's a reminder that mathematics is a deeply interconnected
Yeah.
web of ideas, right?
Yeah.
And that even the most abstract concepts can have like unexpected consequences in other areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
for a philosopher, it raises questions about the relationship between these different areas of mathematics and their philosophical foundations. Do these connections reflect a deep unity in the structure of reality, or are they simply artifacts of our formal systems?
Wow, that's a question that could keep us debating for hours.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're running out of time for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Before we go, I have to ask what's one lingering question that you think our listeners should ponder as they continue their own philosophical like explorations.
Here's a thought-provoking one. If infinitary languages can define truth for countable languages, as we've seen, what does this tell us about the nature of truth itself? Are there limits to what can be captured by any formal language, even an infinitary one?
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. It challenges us to think about the relationship between language and logic and the world, and whether there are aspects of reality that might always remain beyond the grasp of formal systems. A huge thank you to you for guiding us through this fascinating world of infinitary logic. It's an incredible journey, and I'm sure our listeners will agree.
It's been my pleasure. There's always more to explore in the realm of infinitary logic, and I encourage everyone to continue diving deeper into these fascinating questions.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked your curiosity and inspired you to continue exploring the vast and ever expanding world of ideas. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.